YouTube, I'm back with another nursing video finally. I know y'all been seeing these little vacation videos like, is this girl even still in school? Is she still a nurse? Yes, I just been living my life. But this video is gonna be about my pet peeves and then things I love about my job. So we'll start with the positivity. We'll start with the stuff I love. So I love that I always have the first information about everything. Like with COVID, I can always give my parents the most recent updates on everything, vaccines and the numbers and whatnot, and what we're seeing in the hospital with patients and stuff. And then number 9 is going to be free food, whether it's from patients, doctors, other coworkers, whoever. Somebody always giving us some free stuff. 8, my work besties. Kenya, Marlia, Kiara, Kayla, D. Whenever we work together, we get shit done, period. And I always have a fun night. The night don't drag. 7 is $30 incentive. So at our hospital, incentive is like extra money they'll give you to work an extra shift outside of your 312s for the week. It's also 12 hours. So they always have different numbers. It could be $15. It could be 25, but I only pick up the 30s because you got to know your worth. 6, surprisingly, most people would be grossed out, but I love wound care. Like, patient come in with a nasty wound, I'm like the first person in there trying to take off the dressing, digging around in it, getting samples and whatnot. I don't know. I be curious. It just amazes me how people's normal bodies can turn into like these craters and decay and stuff over time. 5, most nurses hate this too, being floated to other units. I like floating because at our hospital, we get floated to med surg. So every now and then it's good to get a little break from the ICU, because in the ICU, the nurse literally does everything. We do wound care, we empty ostomies, we empty Foley, we bathe the patient, we do all this. On the med surg floors, the PCTs, they do a little bit more and they take pride in their job. Like, they'll get offended out there if you try to do their job, like do too much work. So when you go out there, you really only got to give you a 9 o'clock meds and you're just charting for the rest of the night, really, and doing your rounds. And that sounds good to me. 4 is walkie-talkies. So in nursing, walkie-talkies are the patients that can walk around, they can talk. It's just like when you go from having a baby to an older kid, like, this thing can use the bathroom by itself and feed itself. Like, okay, easy night. And 3, I love the drug addicts and psych patients. Like, every time we get them type of patients, they give them to me because they just be so funny and you can talk to them like rough and joke around with them and stuff. 2, I love old people. Like, that's why my concentration is acute care gerontology. I just love old people. They so cute. They're like kids, but not kids, because they can make their own decisions. If they don't want to do something, I can just say I don't want to do it and move on about my life. I don't have to sit there and beg them, but they're still cute. And number 1 should be the same for all nurses, is when you have a really sick patient that ends up making it out of the hospital. Rilo, my dog, is pulling on the cord. But sometimes, like, it's really rare at my hospital for you to see a really sick patient make it out, because most of our patients are elderly. So they're more at risk for dying if they get extremely sick. Like, recently we had this lady, she just got really confused because she was so sick. We literally had her in 4 points. She was German. She speaks English, but when she was sick, she was only yelling out in German. Like, nobody could understand her. And then I came back the next week and she was like completely normal, up, eating and stuff. And I was just really like, wow, like, that's amazing. So, pet peeves. Starting with number 10. Just like I told y'all, I love psych patients and drug addict patients. I hate when a nurse like sees that they're getting a drug addict patient and they make assumptions about them, like negative assumptions, and they go into the patient's room like with a negative attitude, and then they complain that the patient is being rude towards them. Well, like, people can sense your energy. Like, don't go in there with a bad energy just because they're on drugs. Like, they can sense that, and you're gonna get what you give. 9, I hate, on the other hand, when patients admit themselves and then they don't want to let you do nothing. Like, baby, you could stay at home. At this point, you're in here not want to cooperate and got my license on the line because you don't want to take treatment. Like, if you want to die, you could have died at home. Just saying. 8, when a nurse, oncoming nurse, comes in with bad attitude. Like, you just got here. I've been in this shit show all night. Like, if anything, I should be the one with the attitude. And even like some days when I don't feel like going to work, people can say that I have a smart mouth at work, but they can't say that I come in with just a bad attitude ever. 7, when a previous nurse leaves task. So we have this thing called PAL. It's kind of like a notification center. It tells you all the stuff you got to do and at what time, whatnot. And say you come in at shift change and the nurses give you a report and it's like 6:50 and there's a 6 o'clock or a 7 o'clock med that's due. And the rule is you can give meds an hour early or an hour after. So if it's at 7, you can give it at 6 all the way up until 8 o'clock. At 8 o'clock, it's late. So if it's 6:50 and there's a 7 o'clock med on the PAL, out of just, respect, simple courtesy, you should just go ahead and give it. Like, I hate when I come in and they're just like, well, you just got this lab and this medicine due at 7. Why don't you just give it? Like, what are you telling me about it for? You could have been gave it. 6, I hate when other nurses are inconsiderate with you and like trying to rush you to get a report. Like, all the time, people try to call you and be like, you're taking a report or whatever. And I'm just like, you're not gonna tell me what I'm doing. Like, one day I was charging. I had to take a new patient that coded to CT, and I was also admitting a second patient with hypotension, which means her blood pressure was really low and she had to be on medicine to keep it up. So the nurse calls and is like, can you take a report or whatever? And I'm like, tell them I'm in CT, I'm gonna be up in just a second or whatever. And they they did depot their way onto the unit and just gave my report to somebody else. But I'm just like, you never know what somebody else has going on. Like, I get it, you have a time frame that you have to get patients out sometimes, but I think you're competent enough to take care of the patient for 5 more minutes until I get back and get settled. And like when I call units to get a report, I don't say, oh, I'm giving a report. I say, hey, this is Desmond in the ICU. I got this patient. Tell that nurse to let me know when she's ready. Call me back at this number when she has a minute. Like, it's not that deep and that's lazy. 5, I hate like when higher ups come and try to tell you like how to do stuff when they've never been in your position. They don't know what it's like to work in the ICU. They may have been a nurse before, but not in this day and age and not on your unit. So it's really aggravating when they try to like tell you what to do. 4, I hate when patients' families try to come in and tell you how to do your job. Like, just because you give me my 20 melatonin at home to go to sleep, we can't do that here. Like, things are different, And then it's a difference when the family member is telling you what to do and they're helpful than if they're just sitting in the room, like, being a bother, like, nagging and whatnot. Or they're mad because patient is, like, yelling or confused. But, that's normal disease process when elderly people get sick. They can get a UTI and lose their mind. So that's just annoying. At that point, this is COVID. Tell them visiting hours are up. It's time to go home. You cannot stay the nights. That's what I love about working night shift. You can send folks home. 3, I hate when too many nurses, like if I get an admission or something happens and there's a million people in my room trying to help. Like, I don't know what it is, but it just discombobulates me when there's 20 people in my room. I don't know what's being done. I don't know what's not being done. It just really aggravates me. And I feel less organized if there's so many people. I need about 1 or 2 people max in my room helping. And if one of my work besties are in there or at work, that's all I need. I don't need all these extra people. 2, I hate when providers do not cluster their orders. Just like I cluster my care, I need you to cluster your orders. And clustering is like when you try to do as much as you can at one time. And me working night shift, if you putting a new order in every hour, that means I have to wake the patient up every hour to do something new. And that's going to mess with their sleep-wake cycle. They're going to be delirious. They're not going to sleep. They're going to be trying to come out of bed. And then the providers are not going to want to give you nothing to knock them out. Like, we use precedents a lot. And some providers make you wake people up every 5 minutes. Then when they get delirious, they don't want to give you an order for anything to calm them down. So sometimes you just have to guide them sometimes and be like, if you see a pattern starting, like they're starting to put in certain type of orders, you know, call and be like, well, while we're doing this, do you want to go ahead and put this in or that in? And it might kind of help. And last but not least, my number one pet peeve is when somebody is lazy. We're all nurses. Like, we all come in, deal with the same BS. You know, this person have a bad patient 1 week. This person might have a bad patient 1 week. Like, don't be lazy. We all in the same boat. If you don't want to work hard, you should have went to a clinic. They got a new thing called tele-ICU. All you do is you sit at a computer, you watch vitals, you see something crazy, you call them. You're sitting on your ass the whole time. So if that's the type of job you want, you know, go for it. But you do have to have 2 years of experience before you can have those jobs. But it just really annoys me when people are lazy, because you got somebody's life in your hands. You don't need to be half-assing it. So, yeah. Those are my pet peeves and the things I love about my job. I hope you learned something. Leave comments, subscribe, share with your friends, all that. Thanks.